Subha was the last child of her parents, and it was not without reason that her father had called her Subha, auspicious. But she did not seem to have been born under an auspicious star. From her earliest years, her health was a source of great anxiety to her parents. Before she was 10, she had suffered from cholera and whooping cough, and an attack of measles had left her eyesight permanently impaired. As she grew older, her parents became increasingly anxious to get her married, and there was nothing they would not do to accomplish this end. They consulted the village astrologer, who recommended the worship of Lord Shiva and the performance of a certain sacrifice. These were duly performed, but without effect. At last, after a great deal of persuasion, the parents consented to betroth her to a boy of the same village. The boy's parents were very rich and were delighted with the match, but Subha's parents were very poor. They could not afford to buy the ornaments and clothes customary on such occasion. They appealed to the boy's parents for help, but they refused, and, finally, Subha's father, almost in despair, pawned his wife's ornaments to raise the necessary money. The marriage ceremony took place, and the bride went to her new home with the blessing of her parents and the good wishes of her friends and relations. She was not happy in her new home. Her mother-in-law treated her very unkindly, and she had to do all the household drudgery. Moreover, her husband showed no affection for her and hardly ever spoke to her. In a very short time, Subha's health began to fail. She lost her appetite and her strength, and it was evident that she was gradually sinking into a decline. The family doctor was called in, but he could do nothing for her. She pined away day by day, and at last, one evening, she died. Her husband and mother-in-law were present, but they did not seem to care much about her death. They did not even shed a tear. The next day she was buried, and her husband and mother-in-law returned to the house as if nothing had happened. Her parents, who lived in a distant village, did not hear of her death till some time afterward. They were very much grieved when they heard of it, and they came to their son-in-law's house and demanded an explanation. He told them that Subha had died of her own accord and that he and his mother were in no way responsible for her death. Her parents did not believe him, and they accused him of having ill-treated her and of having caused her death. He denied the charge, and there was a great deal of angry discussion between the two parties. At last, the matter was referred to the village panchayat, council, and after a careful inquiry, it was decided that Subha had died a natural death and that her husband and mother-in-law were not in any way responsible for her death. Her parents were very much dissatisfied with this decision, and they went to law with their son-in-law. The case was tried in the district court, and after a prolonged trial, it was decided that Subha had died of heart disease and that her husband and mother-in-law were not in any way responsible for her death. Her parents were ordered to pay the costs of the trial. They had to sell their land and mortgage their house to pay the costs. They were very much impoverished by the trial, and they became very bitter against their son-in-law. Subha reflects Rabindranath Tagore's skillful storytelling, which often addresses societal norms and human relationships in the context of rural India. This story serves as a commentary on the societal pressures placed on women to marry, the indifference of some family members, and the struggle for justice in the face of adversity.